Coming up next on the This Story channel. You know, I think it's time that we think critically about a lot of what we've been saying about goblins, gnomes, fae, all sorts of these mystical creatures, and of magic in and of itself. A never-before-seen interview. There's an entire world that people don't understand is right beneath our feet. The shocking truth. Scientists will tell you that no, magic is not real, everything can be explained by science, but what we don't understand is that some things are simply unknowable to the human mind. We've had a lot of breakthroughs on why exactly humans aren't able to see goblins. We've evolved to be very visual creatures, and of course, in that way, it shapes our perception of the world and therefore of reality. Goblins have developed cloaking magic that they use to disguise themselves from humans, who are very aggressive and very hazardous to the well-being of their culture and their tribes. And very few individuals have genes that allow them to see through this magic, but it takes a very, very, very trained eye to see this magic without what we have decided to label the red circle law. In nature, circles are very important shapes. They have an infinite number of points, they have an infinite number of angles, and therefore an infinite number of possibilities. And as such, we've developed technology combining the infinite possibility of circles with the color red, a very strong color, the color of the sun, the color of blood, the color of warmth, and together these circles are able to dispel goblin magic. Red circle technology is really hard to come by, but I've been fortunate enough that my colleagues have allowed me to see the development of this new red circle technology. And in fact, these glasses, many of you have heard of blue light tinted lenses, but these are actually red circle tinted lenses. Now, I've had very extensive training in Goblin Sightings. It's a very, very deep part of my work, and I actually have a PhD in Goblin Sightings with a minor in Goblin leatherworking. But it takes a lot less effort to dispel the magic when I just have the red circles in my lenses. And this is a very secretive technology. Not a lot of people in the public have access to it, and I would argue that not a lot of people should have access to it. Goblins are a very misunderstood culture, and it takes a very, very, very long time to truly understand and communicate with these goblins and figure out what it truly means to exist as a goblin species. And in that way, there's so much ignorance and so much social stigma against goblins and other fairy creatures, which is a controversial term. I would absolutely use the term fairy creatures very lightly, but simply as a perhaps outdated umbrella term to describe a number of species and genuses. It's very important to protect these goblin species from the common people because they just don't understand. They see them as enemies. They see them as threats. Humans are afraid of the unknown, and therefore goblins are at risk. I've mentioned magic throughout this interview, and magic is a very interesting conversation to have because scientists, human scientists, will tell you that no, magic is not real. Everything can be explained by science. But what we don't understand is that some things are simply unknowable to the human mind. There are different neurological pathways, there are different neurological structures that humans have that goblins don't have, and that goblins have that humans don't have. And I think it's really important that we consider what we're able to perceive and understand about the world is a very, very limited perspective, and that other creatures like goblins, fairies, unicorns to a lesser extent are capable of performing what we know as magic. The U.S. government is very, very against goblins, and as such, they've really tried to erase them from history, which is truly a tragedy in my eyes because they have such a rich and diverse culture and history that I think it is truly devastating to see what the government is trying to do, trying to erase this culture, trying to make it so people believe that goblins don't exist. Watch this exclusive interview up next on the This Story channel.